So
Welcome, everyone, to the Life of Giants. I am one of your hosts, Dino the Genetic Marvel, and with me, as always, is Mr. Cole Clayton. How are you, sir?
the midget giant.
No, I mean, like, it's one of those things, right? Like, I've even met people, and they're like, "I'm big," and I'm like, "Okay," and then we meet, and they're like, "I'm not big," and I'm like, "That's okay. Don't worry about it. That's life is for everybody, right?" So, uh,
But I am like a big person. Even
you
like
are,
I'm short compared to you. I am 6 foot tall, so when I say
yeah.
short, I don't mean short. But like I only recently realized that most dudes at my height aren't even as big as me. Like I'm a
No.
massive human being, like
Well,
broad,
yeah,
like
you
like
are.
I
You
freak people out and did not realize it for the longest time. Like that, I always wondered why cops were so aggressive with me.
always, bro. I've every cop that I've ever met has been like, "Well, you want to go?" And I'm like,
No,
"No," and they're like,
you
"Oh
got a
yeah," and
gun.
I'm like, friend, it wouldn't be a go. It would just be a failure. Just calm down.
The
All
fuck
right?
did
I
I
have
do
no,
here?
yeah,
Right, like they're fucking wild. I always thought cops are dicks, and then I realized, like
yeah,
I call it like horse syndrome because like have you ever heard that like horses think they're way smaller than they actually are, so they
yeah,
see everything as like bigger. That's why they're so afraid of everything. Well, I always feel
yeah,
smaller
yeah.
than I actually am. If that makes any sense.
Oh, 100. Listen, okay, so yeah. Listen, growing up, I would try and fit in places that they're like, "Yeah, you don't fit anymore, fat ass," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I don't." That's happened with cars. It's happened with all sorts of things. Clothes.
Speaking
It
of
happened
not
with clothes a lot,
speaking of not fitting, dude. So I told you I weighed 259 as of this morning, right?
which is a big deal. Good job.
I also am in like I got one of those belts that go all the way to the end. You know, one of those one size fits all belts, and I'm like halfway through it now. When I
Uh,
bought it 2 years ago,
yeah.
I maybe was 3 or 4 notches in. Now I'm probably like 10, maybe 11 notches in.
So I actually let's see, probably in the spring I added like 4 holes to a belt.
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
I didn't have the thingy, so a friend of my wife's was like, I have one. I'm like, "Can I bring my belt over and you can punch some holes?" She's like, "It's hard. You could punch them." I'm like, "Oh, it's fine. I'll do it. I don't. That's fine, you know." But like that's the thing. So I have one of those belts where it's like the whole belt can be used, and I'm like, "Yeah, it didn't do the job. I need like strong, tough leather with one hole and steel. Like that's otherwise, I'm out."
I
I
recommend the one size fits all belt. They're a little more expensive, but like it's worth it.
but the
Especially if
problem.
you fluctuate in weight a lot.
Well, that's the thing is, if you are fat like I was, it is not a good belt. If you are small and fluctuating, it's a great belt. So you're like, it's one of those weird situations, right?
I've always fluctuated in size, like 2 or 3 notches at a time,
Oh,
you know, over
well,
the course
okay.
of several months.
Well,
So,
the idea of winter weight is a real thing. And I think
right.
a lot of people don't realize that. And when you're fat like I used to be, winter weight is like half an animal. Like it's not like, I moved like 6 pounds. You're like, no, I moved like 43 pounds. And people are like,
Right.
what the fuck? And I'm like,
Well, people don't go anywhere. Like that's not really a thing down south. But as I came up here to the north side of things, like people don't go places during the winter time. They just kind of just chill and
yeah.
like they're all. And that's the big thing with the winter depression, seasonal depression too. Is like they're like, oh, I get sad because the sky is gray all the time. No, you don't, because you get sad because you don't go nowhere. You don't do nothing. You just sit in your fucking house all day.
Like that's the thing is like being outside is harder because like there are more clouds and it's drearier. There's less time of the day that has good sun. But
Snow.
but you still like that's the thing is if you don't go out, like the idea of vitamin D and the role it plays with your health, your weight, your mental health significantly, and you're like, oh yeah, like seasonal depression isn't the thing; it's the lack of sun that is the problem, right?
Right.
Now,
That's a big thing too. Is like me and Jack have been getting into like geese hunting videos and duck hunting videos. I think I'm gonna start getting into that because it's a winter kind of a fall winter thing.
Sure.
Just like shooting some birds because I really hate geese to begin with. Like that would take out so much frustration.
So up here, do you know that like it's against the law to kill a Canada goose, right?
I
And
don't know what the law is on which geese. I don't care. Whichever geese I'm allowed to shoot is fine. I'll take it. Take it.
okay, that's the thing is so like up here, if geese are crossing the road, which you're like, you can fly. Why are you walking across the road, you fucking asshole? Right? That's why you have to stop your car. Like you can't shoo them or anything. Like you'll get fined. Like you have to just wait and watch, let them pass.
I know that we do have to technically wait for them.
Yeah.
But I know that I have never been fined for shooing them, and I'll honk at them, and I'll get really close, and I'll aggressively act like I'm going to run them over, so they'll get out of my way. They act big and tough until you fly up on them. You gotta have good brakes for this. You gotta have great brakes.
You do.
You gotta know your car. The bird back behind me is laughing his ass off right now. The fucking
Yeah.
the parakeet in the cage.
So this
laughs
is
his ass off. But
at
he
the
knows I'm
same
talking about
time.
his cousins. But yeah, you guys, if you get up right up on them, they'll get the fuck out of the way. They're like,
Okay.
oh, he means it. I don't mean it, but you gotta know how to bluff.
At the same time, I very much picture you going go, 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 up towards geese.
Oh, I
just to
honk
save
and
them.
shit, and I get up on like imagine my car. This is my car,
Yeah.
and I'm just like in your fucking face as a good. The winter they like flap their wings and shit and move.
That's the thing is geese are very aggressive, but I'm like, yeah, it's still a goose. I will fucking kick it. I don't give a shit. And like, so I've watched a video where a woman this geese is blocking an entrance. She just walks up, grabs it by the neck, lifts it into the ground, and hucks it away. And you're going, it's about a level of confidence just to get it done. Serge, we started like okay. Well, I just Serge,
go ahead.
Thank you very much for the comment. We appreciate you greatly. We're sorry we're starting a little bit late to try and expand our audience. So everyone, please feel free to comment. Today's subject is youth being wasted on the young.
Right.
Now, this is like, look, speaking of that whole idea, it's like going out and doing hunting shit. You're like, that's number one, a lot of work. And it's tiring because you got to walk and you got to stay silent and do all sorts of shit. And it is very much
you
a
could
young
have done in your youth.
Yeah.
But you don't get interested in it until you're older, right?
It's this weird thing. Look, gardening, you're like, yeah, as you get older, you're like, I want to start gardening.
Hold on, give me 1 second.
No, that's hella true. It is. And it's one of those crazy things, right? That like this was one of the driving factors for it was yesterday we went and saw a movie called The Substance. Now, it is like a horror thriller type movie. The suspense really. But the idea is it has Demi Moore, who is actually I don't know how old she is. How old is Demi Moore? Because
now,
yeah, right, yeah, no, when she was born, obviously now you.
Well, I didn't know if this movie's older or not. Is what I meant.
No, it literally is brand new.
Demi Moore, that's the one that dated Bruce Willis and Ashton Kutcher, right?
She's 61 years old.
I was gonna say 50, but damn, she looked good for 50. I ain't gonna lie.
Okay, so that's the thing is she's gorgeous. Okay, when she was young, she was gorgeous. Now she's 61, still gorgeous, regardless. But the whole movie focuses on the idea of when all you have is beauty, right? Once that's gone, people are just like, you're an asshole, so we don't care, right? And they will no longer treat you as a beautiful person because now you're old and gross. Now, that being said, is like it's horrible because you see her in this movie and you're just like, she's still gorgeous. Even I went with Victoria and Victoria's just like,
why didn't you go with an old looking woman for that movie? Like Demi Moore, she's old. Sure, in fucking age, like
yeah, but like she's in great shape, and you get to see her tatas, and you're like, gorgeous. This is a
but
specimen.
those are probably like
regardless, my friend.
Those are probably they had some work, you know.
But like,
they swapped the parts on that vehicle.
yeah. See, even Victoria chimes in. Her tatas were very nice. Like to the point where you're going, that's impressive. Like, that's impressive for a young person. She's 61. And you're like, you watch it, and like then you see her as she acts through the movies and stuff. And like, it's a great movie. I highly recommend it. It's ranked 7.1 or 7.9 on IMDb. And it was 100% top tier. But like, you realize too that like when people are young, and look, you were young and indestructible. I was young and indestructible. Then you get to a certain age and you're like, I'm old. I want my peace. I don't want to be reckless. I don't want things. And you start to realize that you're like, hey, you can't really be a piece of shit to everyone. But at the same time, every once in a while, you're like, oh, it's been a while. Someone's going to learn how I used to be. And that's also a thing, right?
Oh, you and I had different childhoods.
Very. Exceptionally.
You know, so
good way of putting it. Yeah.
I grew up in my youth struggling, not just like financially, but like emotionally, because like there was like a lot of people just they're dealing with their own shit around me.
Yeah.
You know, and so I didn't feel this way, but looking back, I now feel this way about it. I didn't feel it at the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
but now looking back, I'm like, I feel like I was just extra baggage around those people.
Like, 100%.
Whoever was babysitting me, whoever was in charge, you know what I mean? Like, and not only that, but I've always been a bit of, I'm getting it back now with my kid because my kid likes to ask me a million questions all the time. And I feel like I vaguely remember doing that to people. You know, so it's like.
Absolutely.
And then on top of that, as I got older, not now, but like in my late teens and 20s, then things started happening.
Yeah.
And I was just reacting. I don't even know if I'm explaining this correctly.
No. Look, you don't know how to process things as a young person, right?
I was just
and when you're not, and when you're not,
you know?
you're not given any direction. And this is the thing, and this is something that we were talking about earlier, was like, we were driving. It was the first time that I met your son, and he is like, what if you're like, I'm going to stop you right there. That's not a question.
Right.
that's you're just talking for the sake of it's too quiet. I want to hear my own voice. That's not how you do things.
It's not conducive.
You're not going to produce knowledge or a dialogue. You're just saying shit to say shit, which is basically nuts, right? So you were standing there going, hold on, think about what you want and ask me a question. We don't do what ifs and maybes and what if.
Dude, I hate that shit. The what if game is what I call it. He'll just start asking me, what if, dude, don't go. You want to do what ifs? Go to your mom. Your mom's great at what ifs. Trust me, okay? She was always talking about what if you went outside and you saw a girl. Would you say hi to? What if I lost my leg? Would you still go ask her the what if questions? But don't ask me. I'm over that. I'm past those days. Sorry, son.
No. We've all seen those videos. Like, would you still love me if I was a worm? You're crazy. That's my answer. You're nuts. I don't care. And they're like, well,
why would you be a worm?
But the best is the response was, what you should have said was that you'll put me in your pocket and still love me. And I'm like, you want me to walk around with worms in my pocket? Are you nuts? That's a crazy. If someone walked up to you and you're like, hey, this is my friend, the worm. I love it. And it's in my pocket. People go, oh, this guy's lost his fucking mind.
Yeah, they'll put you in a fucking home.
100%. And then you kind of stand there going, that's not like, but that's also, men don't indulge each other unless it's like to mock them, right? Because you'll be like, hey man, can you tell me that time when you thought you were hitting on a girl and turned out to be a dude? And you're like, yeah, you're gonna antagonize that person because it's hilarious.
I think that's a big thing with dudes is it now it's gonna sound shady, but like there's no reason to talk to another dude, even as friends, unless it's mutually beneficial.
Okay, so this is one of those things. Okay, so Victoria, I have never seen that short. You and I have very different feeds on our social media.
What's
So
it say? The guy
have you
actually then starts feeding the worm and cuddling with it.
like
No, I
that's
never
just
saw that.
that
Different,
is that is
different
abs-
algorithm.
that's immediately be like this guy's girlfriend turned into a worm. I'm like, swipe.
I
That's
saw
next.
one. I saw a meme that somebody said, "Baby, if you were a worm, I would cut you into little pieces and make a fleshlight out of you." I was like,
That is not a
"That's
nice
pretty
thing to say
clever."
either. It is clever, I will give you that, but
That
also
he
still weird.
got her to stop asking questions after that, though. She's
Well,
never asked another dumb question to him again.
it's
That's all it
and
took.
see, and this is the thing is when as a young person, someone will indulge you. And that's when you realize, oh, that's not a friend. That's someone who's just like, let's see what this nutso kid says. You're like, all right, let's keep on going. And like I love it when my friends' kids will say, why? And I'm like, oh, I'll happily explain because I will make sure that you have significantly more questions that will ruin your parents' day. I will make sure to use the full gamut of knowledge that I have, right? But that's the thing is, so we were talking about this earlier, was the idea that like um people will be short or curt or even rude because of the expectation that you're an adult, you should know stuff, right?
Right.
And you find out like the same idea when like someone says something really, really just absolutely ridiculous to you, and they're like, "Ah, I didn't know that would do that." You're like, "You're lactose intolerant, and you didn't know drinking milk was going to make you shit your pants." Really? Is the first time you've ever heard of milk? No. What are you talking about? This you should know better, right? And that's we've discussed how it's like if a judge or a lawyer breaks the law, they should know better. They're in charge of the law.
It's
They
almost
should
like
be
they should do
punished
double time because they knew
100%.
more laws than I do.
Hey, they should know better, be punished more severely, and double, if not quadruple, because you should know better. Like, look, an accountant that siphons money from a company, you're like, oh yeah, he's a criminal and should be punished as such because he
Right.
used his knowledge to scam other people. And you're like, that's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I don't respect a scam artist because you could use all that same knowledge in a legitimate way to be profitable.
Exactly.
Right.
I've
And
always told my son to be wary of people who know more than you in any situation. Like, take their advice, but
Mhm.
like,
Think about
don't just like leave yourself open. You know what I mean?
well, so okay, one of the things that I really kind of clicked for me after watching this movie was that like everyone has heard, you should respect your elders, right? You
Right.
should respect your elders. And you're going, listen, this isn't bad advice. This is good advice. But the expectation that you don't fill in on the other side is I also expect my elders, because they're my elders, to show more patience and have more knowledge and not be complete assholes. So you're going, well, if you're an old person and you're an asshole, then well, you're just a bad old person, and
Right.
I'm not going to respect you because you're garbage, right? And that's like Victoria and I were in line at a store, and two old people bypassed the line and started like trying to butt in. And I said publicly, I'm like, wow, can you imagine being that old and still not having discovered being patient and not being a piece of shit in front of people? And they were like, oh. And then they kind of slinked back and went to the back of the line. You're going, what? You should know better. You're older. You've had the time.
Right.
What are you talking about? Right.
Like,
But that's
like when you go out to eat and there's just somebody being a cunt to like the service person
anyone.
or a waitress or a waiter or something. It's just like, I mean, first
Yeah.
off, there's like a whole chain of command behind it. Like
Yeah.
the person you're speaking to isn't necessarily the person causing you the problem. Or like screaming at the people of the customer service too on the phone. It's like
That's fun.
it. The only thing that really frustrates me about the customer service is like first off, it's impossible to get a person, and then when you finally go through all the channels to get a person, they don't.
Yeah.
English doesn't seem to be their first language, like, and so you're already frustrated that there. But like, yeah, why are you being a cunt to these people when it's like it's the company fucking you, not that person? Be a little more. If you kind of be cool and chill. Because we were talking about this earlier, how you're more formal and I'm more, I want to say informal. Maybe is that the term? Where like I almost treat everybody like they're my like best fucking friend right away. I don't do that on purpose. That's just my personality.
Yeah.
But I've learned that if you can do that with a lot of people, they'll go above and beyond for you.
Yep.
Even if they know they're never going to speak to you again.
And so this is, and you know what? Hey, Alrad, we appreciate you and thanks for coming by.
What up, Alrad? What's up, man?
Please feel free to comment. We love your opinion. Now, that being said, so, and this is the wild part, like having been in customer service, it's like, okay, like this was actually a great story was, when I was working, I used to be a real person, everyone. I was a financial planner. And in my early years in a bank, I was an assistant for planners. Now, the funny part is I had
a floor planner.
No, a financial planner.
I worked in carpet.
Yeah, basically the same thing. Now, so the funny thing was, I worked for advisors, and advisors are like, "Here, you're my associate. You give them the bad news." And I'm like, "All right, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me."
Oh, so,
yeah. So I would call, and I'm like, "Hey, listen,
oh my god."
I'm like, I'm so and so. I'm their associate. I wanted to let you know that this isn't going to work. And da 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 da. They're like, how dare? Who do you think you are? I'm like, I told you who I was. I'm the associate, and I've been told to call you and let you know this is not going to work. And they're like, you know what? You're a piece of. I'm going to come down there. I'm going to show you what's what. And I go, okay. Just ask for. Just ask for Dino. I'll be here. And the thing is now over the phone, like we've had this discussion where I'm like, I make my voice higher pitched to sound friendlier to people. So I'm on the phone and I'm like, yes, sir, no problem, sir. It's a fine, absolutely. You know, you just ask for Dino and I'll be happy. I'll come out.
That you mentioned that because I do the opposite. Actually, in public, I actually deepen my voice so that because like if I have a deeper voice, less people think I'm a bitch and won't try to start shit with me. Just anyway, you were saying.
And this guy comes, and so I was in the basement of the branch. And somebody comes down like fast. I hear them coming down the stairs, like boom, 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 boom. They're like, hey man, there's a guy upstairs and he's angry. And he said he's looking for you. And I'm like, I've been waiting for him. It's no problem. So I just go. And I'm like, I'm in the basement. So my sleeves are rolled up. My jacket's aside. My tie is loose. I'm like, give me 1 second. Straighten my tie, put on my things, put on the jacket. I start walking upstairs. I walk upstairs and this guy is barely up to my nipple. I'm like, hi, I'm Dino. And I'm like, now it's no longer
5'7".
And I'm like, so now I'm like, there's no more high pitched voice. I'm like, hi, I'm Dino.
What average height and being like, look here, buddy. Like they with the confidence. You don't even know who this person is, and you just have the confidence. No idea what the other guy looks like, and you're confident you're gonna fuck him up or tell him or bully him, and all you want is average height, which means there's a lot of people bigger than you in the world. A lot of people. I can see how I could have that. Like,
I'm 6 foot
disregard because I'm 6 foot tall and I'm a massive, wide human being. So. Yeah, I could see how I could get away with that. There's a very few people that are bigger than me in the world. But you said your his nipple, that's like 5'7". Yeah, average height.
So, bro, I grab this guy. I'm like, hi, I'm Dino. What can I do for you? I grab his hand and I just pulled him in. I'm like, what's up? And he was like, I had some questions about what we had talked about. Like, I would love to talk to you. There's an open office. Come with me. And I put my arm around his shoulder and basically like had him like hobbling because I was walking fast. And I'm just like, yeah, no problem. Here, you have a seat. Hey, do you want a coffee? I'm going to get a coffee. Do you want one? And he's like, I'd like a coffee. Yeah. Okay. You sit down. give me 5 minutes. I'll come back with coffees. And then I go, listen, so I was doing some research. I went through everything. Let's discuss and see how we can make this better. And he was saying, he's like, yeah, I would like that. I would like to learn and understand. And I'm like, good. And maybe you'll realize you can't talk to people like on the phone. And he was like, yeah, you're right. It's I'm like, hey, we have bad days. I get it. It's no problem. We'll figure it out. And bro, this guy never came back to the branch ever. Everything
banks after that.
Bro, it was okay. Chihuahuas make the most noise in that case. And I'm like, so this is the thing is I understand wanting to be heard. We're literally doing a show on the internet wanting to be heard. I get it. But also, hey man, sometimes you got to be quiet. That's like you learn. Because look, as a kid, if you're indulged, you're like, I have a question. And very seldom, because you're taught you have to be nice to kids. And everyone's like, okay, just let the kid ask his question.
I don't do that. Not with my kid, at least. Hey, you got something to say? It better be important. Like,
hey, you know how many parents are like, hey man, you shouldn't swear in front of kids. I'm like, I was swearing at the kid. So I don't
right.
Like,
I taught Jack all the cuss words.
Yeah.
And was like, and we went into detail on like kind of how they would be used, for the most part in conversation.
Yeah.
And then I was like, now you can't say any of those words. Okay. All right. So that way, because you're going to hear the words, you're going to hear them all the time. Okay. From me. So
look,
know what not to repeat.
Look, this is having children understand that you're like, listen, we don't have the same rules. Like when I love a kid like, well, we're rich. And the parents go, who we? You're a problem. You're a burden on society. I don't know what you're talking this we shit. We work. You're a burden here.
See,
so
I have a little bit of a different thing because obviously I'm not rich and Jack knows that, right? His thing is he likes to come up to me really loudly in the store being like, do you have enough money for this? Motherfucker, I will slap the shit out of you. Don't talk about money. Just assume the answer is no and come talk to me when we get home. And next time, I'm never making an impulse buy ever. Like, we have to go home and talk about it and I can plan for it. But stop coming up and asking me if I can buy something right then and there, you little bitch.
So, this is the thing is like, for like, when you think about it, you can create an understanding to the child, be like, hey, are we here for that? And then be like, oh, but no, we're here for groceries or to pick up this one thing. We're not here to randomly look at stuff. And then,
the problem with that, I don't mean to cut you off, but like just the problem with that is like you're making a great point.
Yeah.
And I understand that point.
100%.
But me and his mother don't live together, right?
Yeah.
And his mother, because because she lives with another man who makes pretty good money, and she also has me, the other man, sending her money every month.
Yeah.
She's able to just buy him any toy or game or whatever he wants anytime they go out, and she does.
And so that's a problem.
Doesn't realize, and sometimes I'd be telling him, I'd be like, hey, just so you know, I'd be helping every time your mom buys you something. I helped buy that.
Yeah,
it's at your mom's house, and she purchased it. I helped with that. Okay, just so you know.
Yeah, that's an understanding that like it's very like it. You have to wait for when they'll understand that shit too, because like the fact that kids are allowed to be absolutely ridiculous in their lives up until they're 18, and then they're like, okay, now you have to be responsible. You're like, that's not gonna happen.
Right.
Like, how many 18-year-olds that are responsible? You're like, oh, that's not those two words don't go together. 18 and responsible? You're like, no. It's 18 and possibly pregnant. That's what
from 18 to like 20, I was just like, it was a cesspool of pussy for me. So like I was just spreading it around the whole fucking county, bro. I didn't care. No responsibility. Very few rubbers involved.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing is like there's And this is like when you get down to it, like you start to piece together, and like I start to realize this kind of stuff right now, right? Like, so I was related. Well, Victoria's like, I was super responsible.
Okay, Victoria, you're Asian, okay, and
Yeah.
that's a cultural thing.
She's
Let's not get into it.
Asian, has both parents. It's like, yeah, no,
Yeah,
she
your
can't.
parents would beat you if you were irresponsible. Like that's not a thing in Western culture.
No. It's, like, well, that's, and I'm like, listen, and you get down to that idea where, like lately I've been seeing people who are like, I have ADHD, so when I answer a question, I answer truthfully, and I'm like, I don't think that's ADHD. I think that's just being truthful. That's not a thing. And then
It's more because this is more autism than anything. But also, why
whatever
does everything need a like? That's a big thing too. That's coming up. That's like almost cringe. Is
oh,
like everything's got to have an explanation. And
oh,
I grew up on I don't want to hear an excuse. So like, you know what I mean?
oh, yeah. That's
I don't
I don't
care
care.
your excuses. Fix
100%.
it. Fix
Yeah,
the problem.
just pick, like, and that's the thing is when you work through that perspective, where you're like, hey man, I don't have a solution here. I need help, and they're like, figure it out, and you're like, I don't know how. They're like, work on that and walk away, and you're going, okay, but that's critical thinking. That, like, those kind of skills are hard to come by now, right? Even
Right.
for me, I was raised super religious, but even still, like my dad, we would be like, "Oh, those people invite us over." My dad's like, "Nope, you're not going there." Why? Like, those guys are weirdos. Because you're going, it's not, you have to think for yourself, right? Like, and like you said, is that, hey, when people seem really smart, depending on how smart they are, is how much they want to fuck with people who ask them questions, right? Because like people will go, hey, so it works like this, and you look at them and you go, now I can break them and go, no, what are you, stupid? Or I can go, yeah, that's exactly how it works, and I just walk away, right? And that's the same idea. Like when someone brings me to like a work function, and then they haven't explained who I am, they'll go, oh, how do you guys know each other? And I'm like, oh, we both served in the French Foreign Legion. And then I walk out of the room. And I go, yeah, have fun. Explain that. And they're like, I'm like, we're not allowed to talk about it. It's okay. And they're like, what? You're a spy? Like, I'm just like, I will make this so much worse immediately just for the fun of it. Right. And that's because when someone asks a crazy question like that, how do you guys know each other? Oh, I'm going to have as much fun as possibly can. Because number one, none of your fucking business. Number two, I don't know what we're trying to play at. So that's fine. No
I can't do that because like I come from a crazy like background history. So like when I'm telling a story, I need I need to be truthful as possible because once people start asking questions about so like what happened when you were this that well, how'd you get here and I'll be like I start telling oh I wrestled an alligator once and people are like I have to tell the truth like,
so having been firsthand to experience this stuff is I've seen people's face when they lie, and I'm like, you learn very quickly where you're going, you're full of shit, right? So the first time that Cole explained to me, he's like, oh yeah, I had to catch an alligator once, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, is that one of those stories that I'm not supposed to talk about? I'm like, there's a lot of questions I have after that. And he was like, okay, well, I'll tell you what happened. I'm like, yeah, please do. And then we had to like clear a space. He's like, so this is how it was positioned. And I'm like, I gotta get it around to like it was, and I'm standing going,
well,
I believe every word. And I'm like,
yeah. By the time the story made its way to you, I had been questioned on it so much because people thought I was bullshitting. So now I know how to tell the story.
Yeah.
In the way that people are going to believe me because so many people are like, no, I'm like, okay, well, how is it? How does an alligator stand? I'm gonna have to show you. Apparently, I'm gonna give you visuals. Like I have to give. I have learned to give every detail possible.
Yeah,
and leave out certain details that make it even more confusing.
100%. Well, they make it like also too. this has happened multiple times where I'll be like, I want to know about that. And you're like, oh yeah, I can explain that. And I'm going, okay, because that's insane. And you're like, oh yeah, it's very insane. I'm like, okay, I want to figure this out. Because then I'm like, how does this piece together? But also too, you're like, yeah, I was kidnapped when I was 6 years old. And I'm like, hold on, we're going to have to go back.
Well, that was the first thing that was the first major bomb I dropped on you, though, right? Was the
Yeah.
kidnapping?
Well, like, yeah, that was, yeah. Well, you're like, I have a child who's 7. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, what are you, 19? And you're like, no, I'm 28. And I'm like,
You're
all
like,
right, that's fair enough. I'm like, it's not also what I expected, but
so
sure.
not old looking. But
yeah. I'm like, so you're a baby having a baby. And you're like, nope, I'm neither. I didn't have a baby. It was, I'm like, okay, so all right, we're not in dreamland. That's good. It's like there's a lot, right? And that's the whole idea of like the times that we've done comedy and stuff like that. Like you learn how to piece things together. And also like when someone goes, you're like full of shit. Whereas you go, I'll look you dead in the eye and be like, I served in the French Foreign Legion. It was amazing. And people were like, what? I'm like, can't talk about it. Just how it is. And just absolutely just bypass everything. But that's the whole thing. Is like, if I had those skills as a young person, I'm like, oh, I would have had like a multinational cult. There's no, like, I would have been some sort of massive leader. Like, that's not, yeah. By now, I'm just like, oh, I'm old, I was fat, now I'm bald. And people are like, yeah, nobody's going to follow you. I'm like,
that's an interesting thing because there's a lot of, I feel like, smart older people that are smart mostly just because they gathered a lot of information over their years. Yeah. But had they had all that information as in their youth,
yeah,
somebody would have been like, you're doing good. Make him the officer. Make him the lieutenant. You know what I mean? Like,
and this is so like in like when there was a draft for World War I and World War II, like one of the things that people would hide was being able to do math, being able to type. You're like, because as soon as you said I could type, boom, you went into an office. And you're like, I want to serve my country. You're like, that's a part of serving your country, man. It's just logistics. You're like, you need someone who can type a letter. And it's a weird situation where you're going, oh, I don't want to make sure people know that I know how to do that stuff, because then I'm going to be pigeonholed into a certain area. But at the same time, you're going, yeah, that means you didn't get your face blown off.
Far away we've gotten as a society. There, fucking 80 years ago, there were men smoking cigars and wanting to die for their country, take a bullet, get exploded, have a bomb dropped on them on the Alabama or whichever fucking ship it was.
And would want to go back. They're like, hey, I'm not done. Patch me up and send me back.
And now like, we have dudes flying drones and dying to get into a fucking office pencil pushing job. And it's like, I went to Crumble today to pick up. Now, it doesn't say much about me because I'm a fucking DoorDasher, but at the same time, I went into Crumble, the cookie place, and there were like 4 dudes in there. And I'm sitting here wondering why it's taking so long. And then I thought about it. I was like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of fucking guys in here. Not like all chit chat and having a good time. And they don't know shit about cookies.
No.
You know, where are the women?
Listen.
Them cookies would have been done as soon as I walked in.
Like this is the wild part about it is like there's like, look, if you watch Captain America, the First Avenger, where you're like, he applied like 6 different areas, lied on all of his forms, which is against the law, just so he
wanted to go to war.
I want to die for my country. And you're going,
and he would have.
And right now people are like, what do you mean there might be a draft? No, you can't draft me. And you're like, no, it's not a choice. I feel like I'd like to be drafted. No. You get the letter and that's it. And you're gone. Right.
Well, I've always like equated to the boomers. I really don't like the boomer generation in general because I feel like, Colin, I'm doing a podcast, bro. I hate the boomer as a whole, as a generation. Maybe there's individuals I probably like, but as a whole, that's a bitch ass fucking generation of men because they like I don't want to go to Vietnam. Which we shouldn't have been in Vietnam. 100%. We shouldn't have been there. We
Yeah,
shouldn't have been in
no,
Korea. But
no question. Yeah.
I don't want to be drafted. They had to draft them. And then it
Yeah.
was so bad that they stopped the draft because so many men were bitching about it. Like, your fucking dad was fighting in the trenches in Japan, in the East, in the Pacific.
Yeah.
And he lost his best fucking friend.
Right here, right beside him.
Right beside him.
He's gone. Yeah.
He was saying we're gonna be fine. And in the next moment, it wasn't we're gonna be fine. I'm gonna be all right, I guess.
Maybe.
You're that guy's son. You're talking. I don't want to be drafted. I just want to listen to the Beatles.
And see, that's the wild part about that was like you had boomers coming home, and they were affected by war, and then they would go nuts and punish their children. You're going, okay, so your kids became fucking psychos as well, but they had no outlet. And then you're like, when times came, we're like, oh, we're going to Vietnam. They're like, I don't want to do that. And you're like, hey man, it's not a question. You're just gonna go whether you like it or not, right? And that's like it's that whole idea where like you're raised with principles or you're not, right? And or you gain them over time where you're going, hey, I don't want to be that person. I want to be a different type of person. Like for me, I used to lie for no reason. I'm just not telling the truth.
I did that a lot too.
After my first marriage, I just stopped. And I'm like, oh, I don't lie. And hilariously, like the way I joke about it is I'm like, listen, guys, 10 commandments, lying, murder, same sin. I'm not going to waste it on a lie. I'm going to save it in case I have to murder. That's what I'm going to do. It balances things out. But you're going like, why would I lie? If I've done something wrong, I'm punish me. That's fine. But I'm like, I'll admit it and move forward. But I've had stuff where like I've walked into a room and people are like, someone's yelling, who did this? And I'm like, oh, that was my bad. I was trying to fix it. And they're like, yeah. So I went and got stuff to try and fix
that situation. And I did lie. And I stand by it. Okay, so I was working in a warehouse. My baby mom was pregnant at the time. That's not an important detail, but that tells you about when it was. I was about 20 at the time.
Your mental state as well, right?
Well, yeah, just my whole life is changing right in front of me, and I'm not necessarily understanding it.
Or in the driver's seat.
I mean, let's be honest with you. I didn't really accept that I was a dad until Jack was probably like 2. So, like,
yeah.
Like, it was just like I was like the male babysitter of this kid. You know what I mean? Like, I loved him and everything, but I was just like I wasn't getting it. You know, like it hadn't hit me yet. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So I was working in a warehouse and I was an order picker. I was an individual order picker. So essentially, I was like, I took individual parts and then scanned it and then put it on the conveyor belt to be boxed up and shipped. Right?
Yeah.
Now they had mass order pickers, which was like a group of things, but I got to fuck off and like do my own thing by myself. So every once in a while, I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" You know, I just walk around the whole warehouse, just fucking with people and trying to dunk on people and whatnot. Just come up behind them and dunk. Be the only white guy dunking on black guys all over the fucking warehouse. Yeah, it was fun. That's how I met my barber. But anyway, we worked together. But something happened and I dropped something and it broke. And by this point, I had already established that I wasn't a fan of my boss.
No.
So I just walked away. No cameras or anything. We're in that. There happened to be a nice blind spot where it happened. So I just left it. I just walked away. And luckily, it wasn't a part I needed. So there was no, it slid off the shelf while I was grabbing a different part. So, you couldn't prove it was me, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I don't know, maybe an hour or two goes by, and I just hear, "Go!" And I come running. I think it's something's like
fire. Something.
Something fucked up. It's the boss guy who me and him already kind of butt heads because he's racist and all the black guys love me. I think that's why. So, which, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Side note, racists are always like, hey man, we're both white, we should be on the same team. And you're like, no, I'm white and I'm only mildly racist.
right, I'm not on anybody's
You're a
side
bad
here.
person.
I'm on my side, my side alone, buddy.
Yeah, I'm funny. You're mean.
Oh, he just wanted me to he just wanted me to hate everybody I worked with,
yeah,
with him, and I'm just like, I don't care. Like,
yeah.
I wasn't bittered by the world yet. For one,
Yeah.
like I was. It's one of those things where a lot of people love me and a lot of people hate me because a lot of people love me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
True.
anyway, he screamed my name. I come kind of like half running because I was big and fat at the time. And he when he makes eye contact with me, he says, "Did you break this?" And I said, "Hold up, buddy. You're not gonna talk to me like that ever again."
Yeah.
And if you ever do, I'm gonna have to whoop your ass right here in front of everybody. And then you hear like it's elementary school. It's all black guys, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, all is echoing through the entire warehouse. It's like a choir, bro. It's just getting louder into the echoes of the chambers. You know what I mean? Like just going and go like a wave, dude. Ooh, like a siren. And he knew he fucked up. And then he was like, "I'm sorry, man. Did you break this?" I said, "No, I didn't."
See, and that's the
Had he asked me properly, I would have copped to it. But because he did that and I made the scene in front of the whole warehouse, I was like, I have to lie. I have to lie now.
Oh yeah, no, I have to come out of this spotless, and you're to blame. Like that's not, yeah, that's and like it's one of those things when someone comes at you with heat immediately, you're like, oh, if you want to fight, that's fine, no problem. But I'm like, but I will figure out how to win, and you're gonna be the asshole. Like there's no,
Right.
I had like so similarly my first week working at a bank. Okay, now up until that point. I had worked at like a place like AutoZone. It was Canadian Tire. It was at the parts counter. Not a real job. It's not like it was ridiculous. Okay.
Go to Canadian Tire. I wouldn't trust it.
Oh no, you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. Okay. I had worked at a restaurant as a waiter. I was people would love to come see me because I would crack jokes the whole time, but also I was a horrible waiter. Like I would get shit wrong, and I'm like, like I would do things.
I would have hated you as a waiter, for the record. We would have never been friends if I'd met you as a waiter.
No. People would be like, "Hey, this person's getting hired for manager. Does that make you mad?" I'm like, I don't care. Like,
that's an effeminate job, so you're gonna get a lot of gossiping.
I was the only. So it was a brand new restaurant. It was a rib place. And I was the last guy that they hired, like the first original hire and train. I was the only man left. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't have been a waiter, dude. You should have been a cook. Like, because
you
wouldn't have fit in. It doesn't, I don't picture you as a waiter, you know?
So at that job, there was a guy. So at that point, I had lost a bunch of weight. So I was like 250 and like I was 19 years old. So I'm like, I'm gorgeous, right? And there was a guy who was probably about 6'8" and well over 500 pounds, big fat tub of shit. His name was Neil. And he would joke because I'm like, because during the interviews, like, I don't sing. He goes, "Oh, we're gonna sing happy birthday to people." I'm like, I don't do that for religious purposes. And he's like, "Well, then why should I hire you?" I'm like, "That's your decision. I'm telling you that I won't do that because of my religion."
It's also illegal in the States. Is it in Canada?
Yeah. So yeah, you can't not hire
for religious purposes.
So the best part was he started cracking jokes about how, oh, I came to my door. So I was helping set up the dishes, which also I was horrible at. And so he's watching me and all the cooks are there. And he goes, "Oh, I remember when Jehovah's Witness came to my door and my robe was out and my dick was out." And I'm like, "Hey, man, that never happened. What are you talking about?" I go, "Number one, no one can see your dick. That's just right there." And I go, "And number two, I go, maybe some things you just keep inside and we shouldn't joke about them. He goes, oh, it's like that? I'm like, yeah, it's like that. He's like, oh, it's like that, eh? I'm like, yeah, it is. You should keep your mouth shut when it comes to that stuff. Hey, and he, just like a complete piece of shit, walked, was like, oh, whatever, and knocked stuff down and left me by myself. And hey, 3 of the line cooks came out and like, I need to shake the man's hand who said that to Neil because that guy's a fucking asshole. I'm like, yeah, cool, bro. I'm like, was I wrong? They're like, no. You were fine, but it's about time someone tells them how it is. And I'm like, oh, thanks. That's nice. I'm like, but that was, I was still thinking.
Being a cook is like, being a line cook is like, being in the, it's like soft, it's like minor league military.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's camaraderie. There's no violence, necessarily.
There's definitely drugs.
Yeah,
lots of drugs. Yeah,
lots of alcohol. But it's a team thing. Everybody has their job, and if one person fucks up, the whole crew gets fucked over. Yep. And so they all are really good people for the most part. Every fucking industry has got skeevy dudes, but
listen, there's a difference in being a sketchy person, but also, hey man, we're all trying to just do our job. So if we work like a team, the better we work as a team, the better time we're going to have. The fact is, it's still a restaurant. You're still going to have the highs and the lows and people screwing up, and you have to fix it because it falls to you because you're on the line. Hey, I screwed up. I need 2 steaks immediately. You're going, yeah, no, you can't get 2 steaks immediately. You're going to have to wait. And they're like, but I need it. My tips. And you're going, I don't care.
No, that's why I don't fuck with waiters, bro. Waitresses. Oh, my table. They're all my table. So why don't you fuck off? Like every table is my table for the entire shift.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the thing is like they get it's that divide where you're going, hey man, you can't talk to people like that. And I've walked up, I walked in the guys, I go, hey guys, I screwed up. Can you help or am I fucked? And they're like, well, what is it? I'm like, I need this. They're like,
yeah, those were rare though. Those were rare.
Yeah.
And well, usually, if I'm honest, they didn't last.
No,
a lot of them didn't last because they're too kind. Well, you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing is because of my size, I've never been someone to shy away of like, I remember one table, it was kind of placed out of where my tables were. Like it was an offshoot, like, and because it was like covering for somebody else. I'm like, whatever. And because I was working in my area, I looked and I was like, are you good? And he's like, I'm not. And I'm like, well, what happened? He's like, bro, my fajitas came and no one brought me wraps. And I'm like, oh, he's like, but now I'm angry. I'm like, let me go to manager. I'm really sorry. Just let me go to manager. Manager comes at me and gets pissed. I'm like, hey man, it comes down to me, but
why no one manager pissed at you.
Oh, because he's like, oh, I had to give him $100 gifts to go make number one.
Why? For over fucking fajita wrap?
Because it was still brand new because the guy was angry and everything like that. I go, listen, hey man, it falls to me because it was my table, but someone else didn't tell me they got food and didn't bring them wraps. That was their job because they brought the food. So they didn't do their job. So yeah, it's my table and it falls on me, but don't come at me as if I screwed up.
Okay. So you worked at a place that had like a food runner.
Well,
that can be difficult, I imagine.
Everyone just had to be like, hands, and everyone had to run back, and you're going, yeah, that's stupid. I don't want to do that, But regardless, I was like, listen, I have to feel the punishment because it was my table, but don't come at me as if I did the screw up. No, someone fucked me. That's what happened,
right?
And that was the weird part. Was I was never like, how a lot of people just deal with people assuming that they're trying to scam you or something like that. I'm like, oh no, why would I do that? And they're like, well, because everyone does that. I'm like, yo, no, it's because everyone you deal with is a piece of shit. I'll just.
I do that though. I assume everybody's at an angle, has an angle. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
that's
like, I want to figure out, maybe it can be beneficial to me too, but nobody's doing anything for free, you know?
And that's one of those things where like I have slowly learned to say no to people because I'm like, oh, you're just trying to take advantage of me.
Right.
And because I would just be like, oh, like people are like, hey, can you help me move because you're big and strong? I'm like, yeah, sure. And other people are like, hey, I'm moving. You have access to a truck? Can you help me out? I'm like, I'll see if I can borrow it. Sure. And I would be like, yeah, whatever. It's fine. I don't mind. I don't mind helping just because you asked me for help. But now people be like, hey, can you help me do this? I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
I
Like,
I almost work in a business where like you had to have helped me first
mm,
before I'm willing to owe you, which is a shitty way to go about life. But I've been taken advantage of because of my kind heart a lot in life, and I'm kind of
yeah,
just over it, you know.
yeah. Hey, what's up, Sam? How are you? Sam, we're talking about how youth is wasted on the young. So,
What's up, Sam?
I'm in.
Well, that's what it is too. When I was younger, I was always out there helping people who
Yep.
eventually never helped me. I've
Wow.
helped people multiple times who never ever repaid the favor ever. I gave people 9, 10, 11, 12 favors and never got one. So now I work on a basis where you have to have shown me that I mean something to you for me to help you. You know what I mean?
So, and this is a weird thing that I've counseled a few younger guys that were like, they had a really good heart and they would work really hard. And I'm like, hey, listen, you should be aware a lot of people will try and take advantage of your
Oh,
goodness.
yeah.
And I'm like, listen, you being good shouldn't be contingent on something else. That's like, and I try and keep this perspective is I do good because I have principles and I want to be a good person. But if you cross me, I will rip your arms off. So it's like it's that whole thing where I'm like, no, I want to be good because I know that that's what falls to me. Like I can only control my emotions, which let's be honest, like that's a learned thing. Some people immediately just lose control of everything and you're going, what are you doing? Like, have you seen, oh, this is the best. Have you seen people on videos where they miss their flight or something and they just lose their absolute shit? And you're like, you came late and they're not letting you on. What did you expect? An entire plane of people that has a scheduled depart time to wait just for you because you're a piece of shit? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, no, that's not light. You're crazy, right?
Okay, but I would like to extend like an olive branch to those people. In Canada, do you have the same TSA problem that we have, where I have arrived at an airport 3 hours in advance, and by the time I'm done with security and check-in, I'm still having to run to my departing plane?
So the only time we have that is
Thanks a lot, Bin Laden.
well, so at like Toronto's airport, there is a separate customs if you're going to the US. And only if I'm going to the States, then I'm like, oh, I'm coming 4 hours early because the TSA cunts just immediately.
Okay, in an international flight, I can understand.
No,
If you're going an international flight, but going inside your country from one place to the next, why the fuck am I getting up at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning to be at the airport by 2:45 for a plane that leaves at 6?
fair.
I
So
9/11 was 20 years ago, and if I'm honest, I'm gonna say some shit. I'm gonna say it in a way that you won't get me banned on YouTube. But if a plane goes down, I'm not that concerned about it. I'm dead. I'm dead. I don't care that much. I don't give a fuck. Get me on the plane. I shouldn't have to ride. It should take a fucking sixth of my day to prepare to get on an airplane.
look, and that's the wild thing.
It takes longer. The time between waking up and getting on the plane takes longer than it takes to be on the plane and go to across the country.
True. Like, look, the customs for me as a Canadian to go to Greece, 3 hours, I'm good. Mexico, 3 hours, I'm good, no problem. If I'm going to the States, I'm like, I'll be there 4 hours in advance. Who knows? And I'll immediately
babies in this country.
Oh, but that's the worst part is when you find out that you're like, oh, the TSA has never stopped anything from getting through. You're like, oh, then why is it say so? I'm like, oh, this is an exercise in absolute ridiculousness.
Most of the time, they're just bitching about lotion and water.
Oh, guy.
I've had so many friends that took their fucking little THC fucking vape pens with them that are a felony, by the way.
Yeah.
In this country, you're allowed to have weed in most states now, but not in not
the
federally,
sky is federal.
in that but also the fucking pen, the fucking like weed wax pens, that's
Yeah.
a felony. And
Yeah.
people get them through the fucking plane all the time. I would never do it. I'm not,
No.
would be me. I
Yeah.
would be the guy that gets caught. Okay. I could shove this shit up my asshole and I would still, they would catch me. They would figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. Cops assume I'm doing something wrong. Any situation where things go awry, I'm always the person people blame. So I would never do that. But
I blame you too.
you're
That's
right.
fair.
People get. You said fuck you.
I blame you as well. That's fine. Yeah, no. But that's it. Like that's the wild thing is you're going like you have a bunch of people like I with my own two eyes have watched somebody go, oh, I can't bring this on. I'll drink it right now. Crack, and it's booze, and I'm just like, oh, that's a lot. Like,
I get drunk at the airport all the time.
Oh yeah, no, that's a fun time. Like the best part about the airport is there are no rules. 7 o'clock in the morning, you should have a beer with your breakfast. No problem. That's totally reasonable. It's the airport. It's the Thunderdome. There's no.
The rule is you can't be belligerently drunk to get on a plane.
Yeah.
Which is how I have how living with an Irish girl for 7 years helped, but partially how I've been able to like remain like have a good like what do you call it poker face as a drunk. Are you drunk? Not at all. Like not even what is alcohol?
If my wife sniffs alcohol, she immediately goes red faced. Whereas I'm like, no, shenanigans.
That is the thing. I do get red faced, but people just think I'm hot.
I get red on my cheeks, but now it's covered by beard, so you can't tell shit. I'm like, oh yeah.
I get it up here. People are like, you look like you're burning up. I know it's hot in here.
Yeah, it's hot. I'm wearing lots of layers. Like, really? I'm like, well, I'm fat. That's fine.
It's I'm not as fat as I used to be, so it might not be able to.
Me too. I'm still fat, but not as fat as I used to be as well. So it's a benefit. No, I don't. It's one of those things where I don't. I found out some alcohol is slightly a teeny bit better than other. That's true. Was that plum wine or what was it, Victoria? Because we tried a few different ones just to see, but she doesn't like alcohol anyways. I'm like, thank God. But like, this is the one weird thing is that like, here's a question for everybody: is that would you? Oh yeah, I got Victoria to try a Long Island iced tea, which is a lot of booze, and she's like, "This is great." I'm like, "Only have one. You're fine."
That's how you die if you have like 4 of those.
I want to go to New Orleans just to experience how insane they are when with their pours, because I'm like,
don't say it that way. It's New Orleans. Don't say New Orleans. You sound like a tourist.
Listen, number one, I am a tourist. Number two, I speak English, not whatever language they gobbledygook speak down there. That's ridiculous. It's not a language.
Can I say that on the internet? I don't know. That's what it's called. But I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. We're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out together. That's okay. But that's like, look, that's one of those things where would you, knowing what you know now, would you go back to the age of 12 and redo it? So
start life at 12 again?
Well, yeah, before essentially go back to everything you know right now, go back. So you can't necessarily change certain decisions. Like, so look, you have a child, that's gonna happen. But like,
well then
no,
because my whole thing was I had a penchant for like slutty women because I lost my virginity to like the neighborhood skank. And then I just kind of whirlwinded into that. And I have always fallen in love with these, everything's just, if I just met the right man, things would go so much better for me.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, I feel it. I'll be the right man. And then every time they turn out to be a fucking psychopath, and it wasn't the right man they needed. It was, they're not the right person. They're a horrible human being. So going back would just, if I have to go through that again, that tiny little experience, because that's my baby mama also. Okay. So, if that all happens again, then
no. But so if you could go back and change everything, you think you would? Like, okay, let's do it because there's a question that
sounds because I have a kid and all, but
Yeah,
I
you don't
feel
want to.
like if somehow I could like download his soul onto another Jack
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
different situation, I would choose that
that's fair.
because like I
You love your son. Yeah,
and maybe have him a little later in life.
yeah,
Um, because like I would have chosen a different mother for him. I would have chosen different um a different me for him. You know what I mean? I would have learned
yeah,
more. I would have
yeah,
because I feel like I'm just now getting around to he's gonna be 9 in December, but I'm
yeah,
just now getting around to parenting him with purpose. If that makes any
yeah,
sense,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's absolutely
you
well.
know?
Because look, when you start, you're just parenting survival, right?
Right.
But now, and especially at the age of 9, like, look, don't be hard on yourself because that's the perfect time to start directing them. Because, like, under the age of 10, yeah, it's just all good times and survival. It's fine. But, like, at the age of 10, you should start considering, well, what do you want to do? Right. Because you have now some decisions to make. Because then it comes to how you're going to educate yourself. Are you going to go into a trade? Is there something that we can help? Like, look, there
Right.
are little things that will expand a child's mind. Right. But also, like, look, you're getting in shape. I'm trying to get in shape. You're like, these are good things that you're like, hey, when you set up those kind of skills as a young person, they become a lot easier later on in life. And look, you were thin when you were young, right? And it's the
Mhm.
idea where it's like it's easier to stay in shape than it is to get back in shape, right? And like, look, I was in no shape. I was a circle for 40 years, right? So now that I'm getting back, like I'm getting into shape for the first time in my existence, the amount of work is unbelievably hard. But is it worth it? Absolutely. I feel better and better every
And
day. Right?
that's another thing that I'm like kind of ashamed of in myself.
Yeah.
Is um like everybody says they've wasted their 20s once they get older, but
Sure.
like I really truly feel that way because my ex got pregnant. I got her pregnant at 20 years old. I was 21 by the time Jack was born.
Yep.
Um, and while she was pregnant, I got fat kind of with her. Like, what did they call it?
Sure.
Sympathy weight or whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, she immediately, pretty much within a year after having Jack, thinned right back down because that's just who she is. A person. She likes
Sure.
yoga and eating kale and all that shit.
Sure.
Um, but I got fat and never
Change.
got
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
in shape and just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I was
Yeah.
pretty much fat my entire 20s, which is the only time I was ever really fat in
Yeah.
my entire life. And I literally wasted my entire 20s just being fat,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's but like and that's that is you were a fat hobbyist and I was a fat professional. Is I was a tenured fat person. But like that's like even now I think about it and I'm like, there were times in my life where I had started the process of losing weight because I was like, I don't feel well. I'm going to start working out and doing stuff. And every time I fell off that wagon, like I look back and I'm like, I regret not being more proactive in my health, but at the same time, I don't know that I'd be where I am now if I had started back then and been like I don't, that's why it's like people will ask me like, okay, if you could go back and be a child with all the knowledge you have, or would you like $10 million right now? I'm like $10 million right now because I like who I am as a person and I like
Right.
my life. I love my wife and and I'm like, I like that my family is all at arm's length. And they're like, hey, we should do something. I'm like, no, I'm good. Thanks. Go fuck yourself. Right. And that's and they try and they're like, oh, well, it'd be nice if you could. And I'm like, nice for who? Nice for you? Why do I care about you? That's not a thing.
That's an interesting point too, because like other than the people who are right here and then my sister, I don't really fuck with family like that. Like I don't like my mom's family. My mom's mother just died. We don't talk to them and her siblings.
Yeah.
I my mom has a decent relationship with her dad. I it, you heard
Yeah.
the alligator story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's fair.
and I don't fuck with none of her dad's side of the family like that either. Like
Yeah.
that's a waste of time to me. You know what I mean? Like I got things going on and people
Yeah.
to see and responsibilities and goals to achieve. I don't
It's
need to
and
be getting caught up in the hillbilly drama.
and that's when you kind of like it's and as you get older, you start to be like, hey, my priority is my peace. I don't like I am doing things because I'm trying to change and grow and be better. But I don't need someone coming in here and kicking, hornet's nest over hornet's nest just because they're too stupid to not kick a hornet's nest, right? That's ridiculous.
I think that ties it up. That closes the loop from when we started, when I was talking about how like everybody was going through their own shit.
Yep.
When I was little, and now that I'm older, those people are still going through their own shit. You know what I mean? And to me, we're building something, right? I
100%.
feel like this is my war, okay?
Yeah.
And you and me were the platoon or the army or whatever you want to call it. And I have my very few people who I trust to be in my army or my militia with me. Some of those people that I'm related to are fighting a different war that has nothing to do with me, and I have nothing to do with their war, and I don't want a part of their war, and it doesn't seem like they want me a part of their war. So I'm going to fight my own war and hopefully win. You know what I mean? So,
that's a great way to round it up. Is like, listen, everyone is fighting their own battles, but that doesn't give you an excuse to dump your problems on other people either, right? Like, and that's like you and I will talk over the course of the day, be like, hey, I had an idea, and we'll bounce back ideas and also to try and gain perspective on a situation. But that's a symbiotic, beneficial back and forth. Whereas a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to vent to you. And I'm like, I don't
like that at all.
You go do that to the mirror like every other grown man and fucking call me when you're done. That's not a thing, right?
Go drink a beer and then cry alone when nobody's around. You know what I mean? That's what I do. Like,
it's one of those things where it's like, I would love to have the benefits of being young, like, physically, but at the same time, I know how dumb I used to be, and I'm like, no, I can't go back. I like how intelligent and while I'm still a rambunctious person, I try and act with peace of mind and calmness, and and
I think that's why the body is designed the way it is because as you get older, you have to be smarter because you have the limitations. You know what I mean? Where you can be dumb when you're young because you don't have a lot of physical limitations.
Yeah, well, you learn, when I'm young, I can lift with my back because I am indestructible. Exactly. As an older person, I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to set this up and I'm going to lift with my legs. I'm going to have a back brace on and I'm going to be fine.
Maybe call a few friends.
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I'm going to give it a try. If it doesn't move, that's fine. I'm going to burn it down. It's not a big deal.
I think what I learned as I've gotten older, because I know you're probably getting ready to go soon, but I didn't know this when I was younger, but I know this now. And life is about leverage. You have to learn how to, like when you're playing chess.
Yes.
You don't when you're new at learning the game chess. You learn how all the pieces are played. That's all you know, and then you're just playing pieces, right? You're just 100%. Hoping something happens, and you keep getting your ass fucking whipped by somebody who's way better at you, probably just because they're older. But you learn as you get older that the leverage is important. It's about closing off the board and trapping your opponent into a corner. You know what I mean? So life is about gaining leverage on things. That's what we're always talking about. We're always bouncing ideas, trying to figure out how to get leverage on what we're trying to do.
And that's that idea where if you have the same, and we were talking about this earlier, was that when you have the same principles that you're like, hey, I prize my loyalty, my trust, and my word and my honor, like those are priorities for me. And you having the same principles, we're completely different people. And if anything, like we both look at each other and be like, oh, this fucker's crazy. But the fact is, we're like, oh, I know.
Crazy though. I think you're like, Cole, you're crazy, and I'm like, yeah.
Well, this is the luxury that we've had is that every time I haven't had to be crazy, which I'm like, I appreciate that, but at the same time, I'm now worried that I'm like, if I have to be crazy, he might be really freaked out because I get crazy, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm old.
Me?
Right? No, me. Because I'm like, if I go crazy,
freaked out if you get crazy, because that shit bounces off me.
No, but like that, so this is the thing is like I've had situations where people are like, oh, Dino's such a nice guy. And then I walk up to somebody and just smack them. I smacked them so hard, bro. They were out. And people were like, I just told everyone he was nice. I don't know what the fuck's happening. And I'm like, this month, and I just lost. And I'm like, bro, I don't like, and that's why I'm like, no, I'm mature. I don't have to do that kind of stuff. And that's like, that's why
I'm still operating on a mode where I'm just reacting to what happens.
yeah.
So, like, I don't think about, is he crazy? Is he not crazy? I think he's not crazy right now. Oh, he is crazy right now. You know what I mean? Like,
so, and this is where I'm like, and that's the funny thing is right now, my entire thing is not reacting. I don't react.
right.
So whatever, and let's be honest, is I did a poor job because every time you've told me one of your crazy fucking stories, I'm like, what the fuck did you say? And you're like, oh, is this one of those stories I gotta explain? I'm like, yeah, you kind of have to explain that. And you're like, yeah, that's a thing, right? But like,
Because I never know.
well, and that's why, like, even I remember last year when I was working that haunted village, like people were like, hey, Dina, what about this? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, how do you not respond? I'm like, I can give you a solution. I'm like, but I don't have to. It's not. That's not my job. So I'm just gonna go. Whatever.
It's so annoying when people ask me questions. Like, it's really like visibly annoying when people ask me questions that I don't like.
Yeah.
Why would I have the answer to that? Like, what are you asking me for? I don't care about you or your problems.
Yeah, those are your problems.
So many other things going on in my life, and I'm an avid overthinker. And you're coming. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you.
Right. That's. Did I send you the overthinking thing, or is like, okay, this is how you understand overthinking? Yeah. And I was lucky going, well, I feel personally attacked, but also this is. I'm like, yeah, and that's like, I remember when Victoria and I first started dating, and she was like, what about this? And I immediately have an answer for her. And she's like, why do you do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you just have an answer prepared. I'm like,
that out like 8 years ago.
yeah. I'm like, so I don't stop like this. Like, I like doing drugs because my brain stops working. Like, I like that where I'm like, hey, shut up. Just stop talking or I'm going to hit you with a Q-tip. Right. And it's that idea where I'm like, I gotta not respond. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm thinking through conversations randomly because I'm crazy. But that's why I always, so whatever you say, I'm ready for to the best. Like the more I get to know you, the better prepared I am.
To me, like if we're like close,
yeah.
I'm more willing to have already thought about any problems you may have and how to be helpful to you. That good hard shit. Yeah. But if somebody comes up and asks me a question that I haven't even considered, it's probably because I don't know you like that. And I feel disrespected that you think that I owe you
an interest
question. Like
it's one of those things. Like, I've had people who are like, hey, what do you think of my business plan? And I'm like, I don't care.
I don't think about it at all.
That is I wish you all the best. I don't really care. That's not like Victoria and I will be like, okay, how, if we wanted to do this as a business, how could we piece it together? Would it work? And we'll go through it. But I'm like, yeah, that's my wife, and we're a team. That's why Atlas comes out. Youth is wasted on the young. Our entire friend group story. I mean, kind of. It's that's a fair assessment. But like, that's the wild part is now Atlas has to deal with teenagers on a daily basis, and I'm like, how is that? He's like, it's horrible. I'm like, that's fair. That is a reasonable. I'm like, and also like, I keep on telling him, I'm like, you need to jazz up. He's got the scar down here, which I'm like, yeah, you fell out of bed and got a scar on your face. I'm like, yeah, you got to tell them you were in a knife fight and somebody tried to stab out your eye. Like, that's what you have to tell kids, and that way they don't fuck with you. And you're like, that's it. Yeah. Is it knife fight?
School shooting.
Oh yeah, to my face, and it's yeah. My bone.
He had a bayonet. Yeah. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
You think that's a new problem? It's been going on since the revolution. This is America, baby.
And that's just how it is. Anyway, so yeah, no, I think, you know what? It's, while I definitely play up the crazy angle, you have to, right? Like, I feel like the fear and uncertainty that you can instill in young people's mind is one of the few joys that you get to experience as an adult, where you're like, I'm gonna fuck this kid up, watch this. And like, so as I've told you, I've been working at a haunted house during this month, and like my first 2 days, the first time was a lady walked up and I was at the entrance, and she just immediately was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not. And her friends are like, come on, we already got the tickets and everything. She's like, nope, I'll meet you guys at the other side. And I was like, nice. And then I was in a maze, and a guy, so his son was holding on to him as they're walking, and they were both like he was overweight like a laborer, whereas his son was just a fat little piece of shit. Now, that being said, what I do is I stand in the dark and I don't move, and then when you come close, I growl. That's my big move. And then I just don't blink and just look at you with malicious look, right? And
You probably still get me. Like,
hey, everyone who has been like, I'm not scared, I do it, and they're like, fuck you, Bo. I'm like,
I've told you this a million times, I think, to this point, because I don't know, because there was like one time you got me and you weren't even trying, and I was just like, just so you know, just like, if you try to jump scare me, you're gonna get me every time. So I'm gonna let you get bored with it now, because like it gets boring. I feel like
100%.
But you're gonna get me every time, and after a while, I might hit you. Like, I don't like it. Like,
and that's the thing is like, so I growled, and this guy who's got his arm around his son, he pushed his fat son towards me.
That's so fucked up.
And he ran away. Okay. Hey, the kid who was probably 13 or 14 years old, little fat tubby kid, like puts his hand up as if like to defend himself. And I just keep growling, and I just look at him, and he just ran away to catch his dad. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be a lot of therapy. That's going to be a lot.
Yeah, you realize your dad's a bitch. Like, there's no therapy that can help you. I'd rather just not have a father. Like,
the world belongs to skinny people. Yeet. I mean, it's, trust me. And that's one of those things where even a family, number one, people who bring children to a haunted house, you're a bad parent. That's it. So this family brought kids that were probably, I would say, younger. They're probably around 7. They're 7 years old. And as the kids walked by, the kid got traumatized. Like, they passed us to buy tickets, and then they had to walk because he just lost his mind, and then he was just like freaking out. And I'm like, why would you bring your kids here? What's wrong with you? You know?
Yeah, in public place, no less, so everybody can see him. I recently, since October and whatnot, Jack has been asking me to watch a scary movie, letting him watch the scary movie. I want to watch a scary movie. I want to watch a scary movie. I finally broke down. Okay, he's been asking me all year, but now that it's spooky season, I finally broke down, and I was like, we're gonna watch an easy one. We'll watch an easy introductory to horror. Okay, Scream, the first one. Okay, that's an easy introductory. We didn't get past the Drew Barrymore part at the very beginning of the movie before Jack was like, this movie's messed up. I don't want to watch it anymore. I was like, okay, buddy. All right. No problem with that. I get it.
Fine. Yeah.
Did you learn your lesson though? Like,
and that's like one of those things where, like, I remember, I watched House of a Thousand Corpses. So I had heard about the movie, and I was like, I gotta watch this, right? And I was a fan of Rob Zombie's music, and I'm like, this guy's fucked. I gotta watch this thing. And I watched it in bed, lights on, daytime. Okay. And I couldn't watch a horror movie for 2 years. And yeah,
I've never seen it. I know what it is, but I've never seen it.
So the bigger issue is that there's no, at the end of the movie, there's no closure. Like, you know how
I don't like that at all.
Oh, you won't. It's terrible. It's terrible. Okay,
it's terrible.
I watched others and at the movie theater. I'm like, yeah, that's because you're invulnerable to fear, Victoria, because you have a great husband. That's fine. But it's one of those things where I'm like, bro, it
She's
scared
been
me.
in communist China. There's nothing that can scare her.
So it's fine. But like it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, like as a young person, like, oh, there were some, like, at least back in the day, things you're like, well, that doesn't look real. It's the bad effects. It's fine. But like now, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't put a kid through that because they're gonna like, especially as and Scream 1, like the beginning is like right to 11.
Right to it.
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I kind of
almost
forgot.
immediate.
I ain't gonna lie, 'cause it's been a few years since I've seen the movie. But
It's
I'm like,
great.
this is my favorite horror movie.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
And
Oh,
I'm not a big horror guy. Okay. But I feel like if I can handle it, I'm more of a slasher guy. Slasher films don't bother me. It's all the
yeah.
supernatural shit. I don't have the emotional maturity to deal with it. Once the movie's over, you know what I mean? Like I'm like one of those people, grown man, and it was like I need to sleep with the light on. Like, is there any night? Jack, I'm gonna borrow your nightlight. Okay. Like,
Hey man, like look, that's the thing is like scary movies are not for everyone, and that's one of those things where like there's a few movies that I wish I didn't see when I was young. That's for sure.
there's movies I've seen as an older person that I wish I knew. There's a movie. Let's talk about some movies. Um, like aren't even classified as horror movies that to
Yeah.
this day have fucked me up in the head. Have you ever seen
Oh
The Skeleton Key with
yes.
Kate Hudson?
Yes.
That movie fucks me up, especially because of my fucking family background
Yeah.
being from New Orleans. You know what I mean? No, I don't fuck with that. That movie fucked me up so bad. I was like, nope.
And like so this is the thing is because like of how religious I was, like watching scary movies was definitely like a naughty outlet where I'm like, oh, I get to see what the bad guys do, because like that's they follow the devil, so they do bad things, and I'm like, yeah, I'm for God, so like it was, and it's like I assume like for like if I had been a pervert in my youth, then I'm like, it would have been like, I'm saving myself for marriage, but I'm gonna still fuck bitches, right? Which is ridiculous. But
Right.
it's like seeing the other side. It was also like, ooh, it was a naughty little thing, and then now I'm just like, I just like scaring people because I'm scary. That's just yeah, and it's funny how I had to explain to somebody, so because I'm working with a lot of young people, right? And like there's uh young people, me, and then there's like old guys, and I'm just like, oh, okay, so I hang out with the old guys, and then the young people are like, oh, you should hang out with us, and I'm like, no, that's fine, I don't want to do that. And
There's a
then
different era of young people too. I feel like I know like
100%.
every generation is like, I don't like the young people or whatever. But
Yeah.
like this generation is just like twinkish as fuck, bro. Like,
So and that's so this I had to
let me blow my cherry
yeah,
vapor in your face.
the
Get the
best
fuck
part,
out of here with that shit. Smoke a cigar like a man.
I explained this to one
I'm
of
a
the
I'm
guys.
a date them. Sorry, my bad.
I got a couple of those too. And I'm just like, oh, you're your own problem. That's fine. You
Right.
don't, yeah, that's,
I'm
but
sorry, I didn't know I was talking to a multiverse.
that's fine. Whatever. And you know what? I try and be like, hey man, if you're happy, I'm happy for you. I don't care. And like there was two that wanted to change in the guys change room, and I'm like, I don't care. Go for it. You're a weirdo. That's fine. But the funny thing was I had to explain it to a young guy. He's like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm like, so one of the little helpful hints is I'm like, look at people as if they're prey. I'm like, you feed on people, because he was playing Dracula. I'm like, you feed on these people. They're cattle to you. They're not people. And he was like, oh. And I'm like, that's how I look at people daily. I just look at, I'm like, oh, you're not worth anything.
Person.
Yeah, I don't care. You're barely anything.
You're potential fuel
Sure.
for the fire. Like,
I mean, listen, Beetlejuice and Star Trek, you're gonna see things. That's fine.
this fucked me up as a kid. Like, it was a pretty freaky movie as a kid. I watched it as a kid, and I've never been able to like rewatch it wholeheartedly as an adult. It doesn't scare me now, but I watch
No,
it with disgust. And
So,
honestly, I watch all Tim Burton movies with disgust because of
yeah.
Beetlejuice, I think.
I look at Tim Burton with disgust.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's not good. He's not a good writer. His movies suck. Can we? I'm tired of pretending he doesn't.
He's a bad person. Let's just look at him. And
Is
also,
he a bad person? I don't know anything about him other than Helena Bonham Carter.
He looks like Tim Burton, and he's now dating Monica Bellucci, which I'm like,
who's that? Monica Bellucci.
Google it, and you'll go, oh fuck that shit. You'll immediately be like, absolutely not.
Monica Bellucci.
Monica Bellucci. Yeah, you'll see her, and she was in The Matrix, and you're like, oh, she's basically, Sophia Loren, but for now.
Yeah, she's fine as hell.
She's fine as hell, and she's old and fine as hell. That's why you're like,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and you're like, that's not Tim Burton is about it. He's batting out of his league. There's no right.
Well, Helena Bonham Carter has always been a beautiful woman. I always loved her from Fight Club. If I'm honest, like I saw Fight Club as too young, and then that's what guided me into the type of women I liked. I think, like,
oh yeah, I was about to say it. I'm like, that fits that you would be like, oh, Bonham Carter. I'm like, no, she's crazy. I'm like, that's
specifically from Fight Club.
Oh, definitely. Also, yeah, no, she's got that's fair. Anyways, it's getting late, so we'll end it there. We'll end it there, everyone. Youth is 100% wasted on the young, but also that gives you the opportunity as an adult to definitely mess with them. Have you seen his exes? Most of them are super hot. Yeah, that's against God's plan. That guy is
all them fucking goth dudes do that. Look at Marilyn Manson.
Bro, there's a new documentary about how horrible of a person he is. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Did everyone think he was going to be,
Yeah, come on, dude.
You thought he was going to be a Bible thumper in his spare time? You're like, no, he's a fucking weirdo.
No, you didn't need to call out a whole ass documentary that said Marilyn Manson's a bad guy.
Really?
Really?
Oh my god. Yeah. Also, to everyone, listen.
The guy who blew up Columbine wearing his shirt. Yeah. That guy's a good guy. Get the fuck out of here. He inspired that shit.
So, as much as fun as we're having, guys, listen, come back tomorrow at 8:30. We're going to do a little bit later for Hammered and Cheese, and we are cooking homemade fish sticks. It's going to be a great time. So, come check it out tomorrow at both of our channels. And if you haven't, like, share, and subscribe. But we will be back tomorrow, and we'll be talking about things. So, have a good night, everyone. Later.